Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my channel, Alma's Little Wonders. Today is Saturday, November the 7th of the year 2020, and we're gonna have another little cross stitch or stitch with me session today. So go ahead and grab your craft of choice, whether it be cross stitch, knitting, crochet, and let's relax for a little bit on this gorgeous Saturday afternoon, or well, whenever it is that you're watching this, really. I hope that everybody's doing well. I hope that you're all staying safe and sound, and you're still taking all the precautions necessary, as we are still very much in the middle of a pandemic. And I hope that you found the time to relax this weekend, or during the week. I feel like it's always necessary to find, even if it's just 15 minutes a day, to kind of just break away from everything and just relax. Today is the second day of another one of Jen Lee's 24 hours of cross stitch marathons. She has them, I think she has them 4 times a year, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't quote me on that. And this time around, I'm not gonna be able to do the traditional 24 hours of cross stitch, since I do have schoolwork and other errands to take care of over the weekend. But I decided to go ahead and join Vicky of Reading and Stitching. Her idea was to do kind of combine the 24 hours of cross stitch marathon and the theme of November, which is no new start, or actually backwards, it's New Start November. It's New Start November. So she said that she was gonna try to start as many things as possible over the weekend. So I thought that was a neat idea. And so far, I wasn't able to start as many things as I wanted to yesterday, but I managed 2 new starts, and so this is my third. Oh, I suppose I should show you guys what I'm working on, huh? It is a new piece. It's by the same designer of my Bilbo's Home piece. It is called The Little Prince, The Beginning. And this is what it's going to look like when it's, oh, hello, you can see my reflection. But this is what it'll look like when it's finished. And it's kind of hard to tell, but pretty much all of that sky is going to be half stitched. So really the only full stitches that are going to be on this design is going to be the Little Prince and the his little asteroid where he's taken off. So I thought it was a really pretty design. That book has always kind of stuck with me. I've always appreciated it. I saw the Netflix original movie that came out. That came out. Was it last year or the year before? I don't know. So yeah, so I kind of flagged it or favorited it as soon as I saw it, and Bilbo just kind of won me over this one. But that mean that doesn't mean that this one isn't any less pretty. Bilbo was just the one that just really called out to me and was screaming for me to stitch it up. But I decided that I was going to go ahead and work on this one, so that when I do finish, oh, that's my boyfriend, bless you. Once I do finish, Bilbo will go ahead and work on this one, and it'll be ready to go for me to pick it up. Part of my goal for this weekend is to, and I've already messed up. Oh no, I haven't. I'm good. Part of the goal for this weekend for me is to get myself ready for the No New Starts challenge next year. One of the things we need to do is we have to make sure that we have an album in the Facebook group where we have all of the whips that we're going to be working on during the course of the year. And for each whip, you also have to have a kind of like a starting photo. So this weekend is also going to be about making sure that everything is all set and ready for me to go and cross-stitch all the things next year. So for this weekend, for each new start I make, I'm already putting in 200 stitches, which is the minimum requirement for the purposes of the group. Their minimum stitch count is 200 stitches in order for it to count as a whip. So just to make sure that I am ready, I'm just doing 200 stitches right off the bat, taking a picture, and then, you know, if I pick them up again in whatever remains of the year, then so be it, but I'll at least have that starting picture all set and ready to go. And for a lot of these whips, I am starting them, but I'm not necessarily, oh my goodness, I'm like almost off frame here. I'm starting them, but I'm not necessarily going to keep working on them too much. Like this one, for example, as I mentioned, I'll go ahead and put in the 200 stitches, but then it's going to go away for a while until Bilbo is completely finished, and then I'll go ahead and pick this one back up. So, because Bilbo was supposed to be a finish this year, and it just didn't happen. So I want to make sure that I do go ahead and finish him. And the same goes for a lot of the whips I've been starting this last few weeks. So it looks like my whip pile is growing, and technically, I mean, it is growing. There's no avoiding it, but a lot of those whips are not really going to be touched anytime soon until something else is finished. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I have at least 2 finishes next year. Hogwarts is going to definitely be my focus. I want to stitch on it this month, and I do plan on stitching it this month. I'm doing the Full Coverage Phonetics Wheel of Fortune challenge, which is, I mean, so far it's worked wonders. So far I've stitched 4,000 stitches on one of my whips, and so I just have one more set of 500 to go before I can go ahead and move on to the next word. So the premise of the challenge is, if you are counting your stitches, then what you need to do is you need to choose what level you're going to be doing, and then you just stitch that many stitches for each letter in each word, and you have to complete a word before you can move on to the next. So the first word had 9 letters. I think it's celebrate, if I remember correctly, and I chose my full moon piece, which you've seen in I think I did a stitch with me with that one a while ago when I was first starting it. So I've already gotten, I think I've already hit 40% on that one, and just in this last week alone, since I started doing the Wheel of Fortune challenge, I've doubled the amount of stitches that I had originally. So it's been a great incentive. It's been a great way to keep stitching and make progress on a single whip. The next whip that I have lined up for the next word is Moon Charmer, which I believe is going to be 4,000 stitches if I remember correctly. And then it was Moon Charmer. I also have my Fane Fairy. I call her my Fane Fairy. It's a Midnight Stroll, Mini Midnight Stroll by Julie Fane from Hade. So that's why I call it Fane Fairy. She does a lot of fairies. But she's also slated for one of the words. And then I think the second to last word is Hogwarts. The last word in that group of, you had to choose 2 categories. So the last word in that category has 10 letters. I forget what the word is, but it has 10 letters. I'm not going to do that one. I'm not going to force, or I'm not planning on doing it because I don't want to force myself to stitch all that much. Because all of this has to be done within the course of the month. So, as it is, I actually think I did the math, and I think if you were to do everything, you would stitch 19,000 stitches. I think. I might have done the math wrong, I'm not quite sure. But the point is that it's a lot of stitching, and I just thought doing, 4 out of 5 words wasn't that bad. And that way I wasn't going to stress myself out over finishing everything. Because I am that kind of person, so I just thought, right off the bat, I just thought, I'm not gonna do this last word. If I get around to it, great, but I'm not expecting to get around to it. And from what I understand, that challenge is going to be coming back next year, which will be fun. And I'm honestly just looking forward to next year in full coverage fanatics in general. I'm really going to try to use those challenges to try to get some work done, progress made. I feel like, I think I did this wrong. While I did make a lot of progress on my whips this year, I just feel like I didn't do as much in the end as I wanted. So I want to make sure that changes next year. The example being Bilbo, that was supposed to be finished this year, it didn't happen. I also meant to finish a lot of my kits, my Dimensions kits. So while I have those kits, I want to make sure that I'm working on at least one of them at a time. So I think what I have planned, so here we go, like this is the topic for today, I guess. While I can, I want to go ahead and just try to make sure that I have some sort of order. So when I started the Frankenstein style, for example, I started having Frankenstein Fridays. So every Friday, I guess I didn't work on it yesterday, I missed yesterday, but every other Friday, besides the last one. I'm sorry, I keep thinking I have a knot, but I don't. Every Friday I would go ahead and work on it, and that ended up being a great way to keep somewhat on top of it. I ended up falling a little bit behind towards the end, and then she released the last part a week early, so at that point I knew I wasn't going to be able to catch up and finish along with everybody, which was fine. It made sense for her to speed things up because some people were hoping, is this right? No, this isn't right. some people were hoping to go ahead and have Frankenstein all set up and ready to go for Halloween. So she was gracious enough to go ahead and release the pattern, because originally the last part was going to happen on Halloween, but she released it a week early so that people could have a week to finish it off and have it on display for Halloween. But anyways, that the Frankenstein Friday thing ended up being a good way of keeping up. I also used to have time to stitch Tuesdays to work on the Lakeside Needlecrafts stitch along, mystery stitch along. Unfortunately, once school started, I wasn't able to keep up, and I just kind of fell behind. I'm still, I think I'm 2 months behind now, because the October part released and I haven't even started that one, and obviously the November part released as well. So yeah, so I've been falling a little bit behind, but that's okay. So I was thinking for next, and I also, me being the person I am, I ended up starting more sales. I started the Linen and Threads Mystery Sampler, and I started, did I start anything? Well, I did start Frankenstein, but I'm almost done with that one. I did want to start a Blackwork style by Leslie Tier. It's called Birds and Blackwork. It's so pretty. It's so pretty, and I fell in love with it. I saw it on Stormy Stitcher's FlossTube channel. We'll go ahead and link it below. Sorry, the lighting changed. It's cloudy today. We had some rain this morning, but I also saw it. One of my stitchy friends from Virtual Stitchers was working on it as well. So when she pulled it up, I kind of took that, you know, as a sign, like the universe saying that you have to stitch this, because I've been seeing it all over and it's just really pretty. And they originally thought I was going to have the fabric for it. It turns out I don't have a single cut of fabric that's big enough for all 12, because it is a year-long salad. It's one part per month. I originally thought I was going to have a big enough piece for it, but I don't. So what I may do, what I'm leaning towards doing, is to have it on maybe like 3 pieces of fabric and have 4 parts on each cut of fabric. Because again, going back to the new starts group, for them a single whip is 1 cut of fabric. So the problem with splitting that sal up into 3 cuts of fabric is that I would have to have 200 stitches in each part that I make. So that's just something that I would have to consider if I do choose to split it up. Otherwise, I would just have to wait until next year to do it. Which, you know, I've got plenty of other whips to keep me busy. It's not that I don't have enough whips. But I just really wanted to start it. And I even told my friend on Virtual Stitchers, I even told her, like, yeah, I'm gonna be starting it this weekend. Like, I was so sure, excuse me, I was so sure that I had the fabric for it. And when I actually sat down and measured it, it was like, whoops, just kidding. So I may go ahead and split it up, because I think what I wanted to do anyways was to have it as individual smalls, because each part has a border around it, so you can easily have it be 12 individual pieces. So I'll just have to power through, and I mean, I have time. I'll just go ahead and make sure that I get around to it. You know, it can be part of this weekend for the 24 hours of cross stitch marathon, start all the things, or it can just be something that I do before the end of the year. As long as I declare, so they call it declare the whip, right? So for the No New Starts group, as long as you have your whip album and you include that whip in the album by December 13th, you can work on it. And then if you happen to, you can start it between December 13th and the end of the year, December 31st. So you're in the clear as long as the whip is on your list, regardless of the starting point, by December 13th. So I've got a little over a month to do those 200 stitches on all 3 parts. So like, it's interesting. I feel like I'm talking myself into it. Like I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So I guess you'll see that. You'll see that coming soon, because it is a really pretty style. So I was thinking of having like Style Saturday or Style Sunday and dedicate at least a day of the week for my styles, so that I can, especially for like the time to stitch one that I actually started when it originally started, like I started along with everybody else when it came out. I do want to go ahead and catch up on that one, because I do feel bad that I fell behind. But besides that, I also have a kind of set idea of how I want to work my whips next year. Joann's had a sale. I think they were calling it like a pre-Thanksgiving sale. They had a sale, and it was for a lot of things were like up to 60% off. They had, it was a good deal. It was the good deals. I'm pretty sure they're still gonna have like a Black Friday sale, but at least for this one, the DMC floss was going, I think, for like 42 or 45 cents, and they're now up to 62 cents here in the United States. So when they advertised the DMC floss, they didn't even bother putting the price. What they do is they just tell you it's too low. The price is too low to show. Which I always thought was funny. I guess for anyone that's looking in on the outside, to see that an item is going for 45 cents is bizarre. But for us, it's fine, like we're used to it. But any other crafter that like goes through the offers or anything, that might, it might look a little weird. But I did end up getting some floss for my full moon piece and my change of seasons piece, so that I can keep going on it. But I mean, as I was checking out, I was kind of thinking, you know, what can I do to make sure that I'm not buying floss every 5 minutes, because I do have a very extensive whip list now. And originally, I mean, especially for change of seasons, when I originally started kitting that up, I just went for the one color, because I thought, you know, for the sake of saving money, I'll just go ahead and just work on this one color, and then I won't move on until I finish it, which ended up being kind of boring, really. Both me and Sakia, Mandarinks Designs, who's also working on that project with me, I'm gonna go ahead and tie this off. But we both kind of agreed that we both hit a bit of a stump. You know, we were not that inspired to work on it, and we both agreed that it was because of the fact that we were both trying to do that one color first. But after finishing 8,000 stitches on that one color, I decided it was high time to add a second one, and that ended up making all the difference. Once I did that, I was all set and ready to go, and now I have no problem doing it. But one of my followers on Instagram made the suggestion of working the whip in such a way that I would essentially be stitching along each season as we were in that season. So right now I'm working on the corner for fall, and you know, we are in fall. So the plan is to keep stitching on that corner until we hit winter. And then once winter hits, I'll go ahead and start on the winter corner, which is it's right next to it. And I'm working my way towards the center so that I can go ahead and jump over to the winter colors without necessarily having to count too much. And then during winter, I'll go ahead and make my way at least towards the edges so that I can go down to the spring corner. And you know, I'll just keep doing that all year, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was a really original idea. And give me a second, I just need to mark off my stitches. I thought it was a really original idea, and I do want to go, so that's why I went ahead and bought myself some floss for it, because I needed to get those winter colors, which of course means there's a lot of white. There's a lot of white coming up, a lot of blue. I needed a lot of the 775 for it, and I think it was 817 or 827, can't remember, but it's a light blue. So ultimately, I hope to be able to keep that momentum going and get some work done on it. But another solution, quote unquote, that I kind of found for the floss issue of not having to buy floss every 5 minutes is to look at, because when I first started cross stitching, I actually ended up kitting up some of my projects, like fully kit up, before I realized that because when I first started cross stitching, before I found Haid and Tilton Crafts that kind of gave you the materials list that tells you how much of each color you need. I would work like Hogwarts, for example. It gave you there was an Excel spreadsheet that came along with the pattern that gave you the floss count, but then it was up to you to determine how much you needed. So in the beginning, I used to kit up a lot of them. So I just thought, okay, well, I'll go ahead and focus on those that I already have kit up. So Hogwarts is not exactly 100% kitted up, but I know that I'm doing the black first, so that's going to go ahead and give me a little bit of time before I need to buy any floss for it. And here we go again, I have to end my thread here. The other one is Mini 1. When I got my Mini 1, it was, and that's my Heaven and Earth Designs piece. That one I ended up getting the material pack for it, because at that point in time I thought it was easier. I didn't realize it was going to be so expensive. So it's my one and only material pack from Haid. Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. So obviously that's going to be my next focus, and I already have it slated for the 21 and 21 challenge for full coverage fanatics. So I think what I'm going to do is, if I manage to focus on these whips as much as the way that I want to, I'll be able to do the 21 and 21 challenge multiple times throughout the year. This time I was only able to do it once, but that's because I was focusing on a lot of things all at once. So I feel like if I were to kind of get myself organized a little better, I'll go ahead and be able to do it multiple times. So my goal is to try to trying to find myself here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I think this is it. So my goal is going to be to try to finish it. Try to finish that piece, and then move on to the next one. So the next one being Moon Charmer. Moon Charmer was also the one that I kitted up fully when I first got it, and it wasn't until much later that I realized that it calls for one skein, but you only need, 50 stitches of one color. So that's kind of the beginning of when I started to think, well, maybe it would just be better to buy my floss myself, so that I'm not, or not kit everything up fully, so that I'm not buying a full skein when I only need 50 stitches, because I don't like it. I don't like it when that happens. So yeah, as you can see, I'm already in big time planning mode for next year. First finishes that I want to get are Bilbo, obviously. Hogwarts I want to finish at one point, but I also want to finish my Haku piece, and at least one kit. One of my stacked teacups kit is kind of relatively close to being finished. I feel like if I can, again, going back to maybe having a day of the week dedicated to kits, so that I can at least get some work done on them. I feel I can get them done, because ultimately, and what I've learned with the Wheel of Fortune challenge is that, when you focus on a piece for multiple days, it can make a lot of difference. So I feel like that's what I'm gonna end up doing, and hopefully I can stick to it, because it's, oops, sorry, giving you guys multiple earthquakes here. It's one thing to say, like, everything sounds fine in D&D in theory, but then in practice, not so much. I've been talking about the full coverage phonetics events, and yet there's always magical stitches and enchanted stitching challenges. So I'm hoping to be able to, at least they offer like the penalty stitch option, so I can still focus on the full coverage phonetics events and then just work my way around it with magical stitches. But I do like the idea of magical stitches. The whole point is that it kind of gives you the opportunity to work on stuff that you wouldn't normally work on anyway. So I'm hoping that I can find a good balance between the two. But we'll have to see. The no new starts thing is also going to be it's going to be fun. I've decided that I'm not necessarily going to participate in the official challenge. I think I'll just go ahead and call it, or work on it as I think best suits me, so that I can not feel pressured, I guess. I feel like I could do it because I can't go long periods of time without starting anything. I think the longest I've gone is like 7 or 8 months. So, if I put my mind to it, then yeah, I can do it. But sometimes the temptation is just too much, as is evident from this weekend, right? just starting all the things. I mean, not just this weekend, but I've been starting everything. I feel like for a month now. It's been interesting. I'm almost done with this color, at least this section for this color. So sorry if I'm changing, like, because I have to end my threads. I don't like carrying over. The way that I work with, actually I'm just gonna start a new color. It's fine, because I don't want to jump that much. It's a bit far for my taste. But the way that I kind of determine whether I'm gonna carry over the thread or end it and start it afresh is I try to see which essentially comes down to which one will use up more thread. So if carrying over is going to use up more thread than ending it and starting again, then I'll go ahead and end it. But of course it also has to do with whether or not the area will be stitched. So if I know that it's going to be a blank space and there's not going to be stitches covering up, then I'll definitely end it. I won't jump over blank spaces. So I'll go ahead and start a new color because that'll be easier. But yeah, I don't know. So we're gonna go ahead and do, this is 797. It's a nice dark blue. And as I mentioned, most of the sky in this piece is half stitched. So we're gonna be working with half stitches now. I'm pretty sure there's 2 strands. It just occurred to me, I'm pretty sure it's 2 strands for each. Oh goodness, I hope so, because otherwise I'm gonna be in trouble. Oh, I forgot to mark those off too. Please hold. But yeah, for carrying over, that's usually my rule of thumb, is to see which one's gonna take up more space. Or more thread, I should say. Okay, there we go. Now we're in business. Yeah, okay. And sorry if I'm trying to like stay in frame. It's kind of hard to work with the Q snaps and the camera and my tablet. But yeah, I've got, for the rest of the weekend, I've got a few more starts planned. I was actually supposed to start a Teresa Wetzler piece with Sarah from our Stitching Kingdom, but I was fighting a migraine. I was off all day yesterday. I was fighting a migraine all day. I ended up resting, and then of course that screwed my schedule up, and I ended up staying up until 4 a.m. But it was fine because I had good company. Since I was up at odd hours, I reached out to another friend of mine, Tess, from Tess Stitches, and we chatted, and it didn't feel like I was up too late. It just happened that at one point I just picked up my phone to look at the time and noticed that it was 4 o'clock in the morning, or almost 4 o'clock in the morning, which is her evening time, because she's in Australia. But yeah, I was supposed to start the Teresa Wetzler, and I wasn't in the right headspace for it, and I briefly considered starting it here during the Stitch With Me, but I thought it's a Teresa Wetzler. It's probably going to be very tedious to start in the first place, and being on camera, I mean, it's just prone to making mistakes. You know, it's a lot easier to make mistakes when you're not 100% focused on the stitching. So I just didn't want to risk it. So I'll start that later on today, because she did go ahead and start it. I told her to go ahead and start it if she wanted to, and I told her that I would go ahead and start it on my own time. But besides that one, I do have a couple. I'm so bad. I do have a couple more of this designer's pieces lined up. I've decided to start 2 more, but again, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'll be working on them next year too much. It's just there in case I finish other things, and that way, that's the only way that I'll allow myself to start to continue working on them. But same drill as the rest of these whips. I'll go ahead and start it, put in 200 stitches so that I can qualify for no new starts, and then I'll put them aside until I finish something, and once I finish something, then I can pick them up. The same thing. So if you follow me on Instagram, a few days ago I posted that I started a Bella Filipina design that I bought myself for my birthday. It ended up being a false start. So the kit, like the product image and the cover image for the kit said that it came with 14 count Aida, but the fabric that came with it was not 14 count, it was more 16 count, and so I just didn't, like, I knew that there was going to be beading, right? So I thought, okay, well, 16 count is not too bad. It's not as good as 14 count, but it's not terrible. It's not impossible like with 18 count. And I was okay with it, kind of talked myself into being okay with it, until I realized that the kit also, not the kit, but the pattern had a lot of 1/1 stitches. So in the face details and the hands, right? So the fingers were all 1/1, and for me that was the deal breaker. So I've decided that I'm going to go ahead. So she's going to have to wait. She's gonna have to wait until next year, or 2022, I guess, because I'm not starting anything next year. But I will, at one point or another, get even weave for her, just like my Mirabilia that I started last July, or this July, I suppose, for my birthday. But yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment. I didn't, it's just one of those things, you know, when you get a kit, you kind of rely on them to give you the correct materials. So it was kind of disappointing to find that they didn't. But I did get it off of eBay, so part of me thinks that maybe it just wasn't a legit kit, even though it certainly looked like it, the pattern looked like it. It was just the materials, like even the floss that came with it, it was just plain old DMC, which also was kind of a bummer. Because again, I could have probably gotten everything cheaper if I kitted it up myself. But really the reason why I was okay with getting the kit is because it did come with all the beads, and well, the fabric again. The fabric was the big thing for me, but there it is. So yeah, so that is not going to be a start for this year. It'll be a start for 2022. Besides the Mandarinks Designs charts, I'll try to start the Leslie Tier Sal, and I also have, I feel like I'm forgetting another full coverage. Actually, no, I think that's it, because I did start the tree. So one of my viewers was kind enough to send me a cross-stitch kit in the mail. A few cross-stitch kits and patterns, actually, not just the one. And I went ahead and started one of them. So I did start that one. Mandarinks. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as new starts that are left. Oh, I am gonna be starting another HAID. I'll be starting a HAID called Tea and Books, or Books and Tea. I'm pretty sure it's Tea and Books, but I'll be starting it with tests as well. So hopefully I'll be able to start that before the end of the year. But I think that does it for me in terms of the new starts, or whips, I suppose, for next year. And I think I'll go ahead and end it off here. It is the 45-minute mark, which is just about how long I make these anyways. Sorry if it seemed like I was rambling. I just I didn't know I didn't know what I was going to be talking about during the video until I found myself talking about it. So there it is. It's a nice little start on this new piece. So thank you for joining me for a little bit. I hope that you guys have a good weekend, a productive week if you're watching this during the week. And I hope that, as always, you find the time to make the thing that makes you happy. Until next time, guys, take care. Bye.